About time I talked about Pokemon, huh? You know, most people review the two parts separately, but not me, because I'm special. And well, yes, I could have reviewed the base games. I was A, busy, B, kinda just wanted to enjoy the games myself, and C, making videos alone takes a lot of time. Time that I'm not always granted. Also, side note, since I'm not rich, this will specifically be the Violet version, since that is the version I have. So yeah, without further ado, the Treasure of Area Zero is paid DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, where you go to new places and catch more Pokemon with a few variants and evolutions thrown into the mix. And making Appland the new Eevee for some dang reason. Because we're crying out loud, just give us new V's, Game Freak! It's been 10 years at this point for Arceus' sake, and now this frickin' apple has 3 other evolutions! With one of those getting another evolution on top of that for crying out loud! Where's the love for the best boy Eevee? Huh? Starting with the Teal Mask, you are sent to the region of Kitakami for a school trip, where you meet Kieran and Carmen. And it's okay. Starting with some of the pros, the twist on the story of Momotaro is pretty interesting. With the good guys ending up being the villains is a very intriguing concept in its own right. Then the return of fan favorites like Litwick and Feebas definitely made it worth it. Plus, with all the Pokemon being higher level makes grinding for completion of the Pokedex so much easier. If you want a challenge, well, good news! A lot of the training fights are a really good challenge, especially those with Kieran. That is, unless you've been grinding your team and have overlevel Pokemon, like I did. There's the Ogre Busting minigame, which is fun, but it's better with friends. And I don't have anyone with the DLC or readily available and willing to play it. However, if you finish the story, it's not over yet. There is still a little more you can do. After you get 200 Pokemon in the Kitakami Dex, you can unlock Pekkarin's story, which is just so relatable and it hits home and makes it one of the better characters of the whole DLC. The story just hits me for some reason. So, starting with the cons, as a lot of the area is more or less the same. The only areas that are somewhat different would be the top of the mountain, the Timeless Woods, and the Barrens. Other than that, it's pretty samey, which makes the backtracking much less enjoyable. And yes, backtracking! Because the story requires quite a bit of it. I swear, the amount of times I had to go up and down the mountain alone is insane. It makes up by being generally small, but it's an open world. Exploration is kind of the point. The story also kind of lacks as things just kind of happen. I'll try not to spoil too much, but there are a few things I wish they expanded upon a little more. Like the Loyal 3 and how they came back. It's never expanded upon, never questioned. It just happens. Speaking of the Loyal 3, I wish they were more of a threat, like, yeah, we have to get the masks back, but I feel like these guys should have been more threatening, thus making the ending make more sense and adding some more urgency to the whole situation. Then there's Carmen. And I know it's been a long time since we had an actual hateable rival, but I don't think she's that chief. It feels like she was meant to be likable, but how she treats Kieran just doesn't make her really stick to me. I get she was supposed to be the one who kinda pushed Kieran to start the plot in part 2, but it still doesn't sit with me. Here's when Carmen is just prideful and the big sister. Nimona is not only supportive, but will also fight anything with a pulse. And to such an extreme that it even scares the other characters. Then you also have Arvin, who starts off as a bit of a jerk, but accepts your help and has the benefit of a traumatic backstory. Meaning, not only do we have a big personality, but we also have a character that just does it better. The reward for completing the Pokedex is also a little lackluster, especially compared to the main game's prize, but that's just me. If you want the Terror Charm, then go for it. But compared to the reward for Pekkarin's story and the main game's reward, it just fell flat. The Loyal 3 also kind of fell flat as legendaries, as they were more meh to me. The idea was there, but they looked like memes with names to match. In fact, when they were first revealed, I thought they were like secondary starters like in Kalos, not legendaries. Catching them was also a pain. I remember trying to catch this freaking bird for so long it started using struggle, thus killing itself. But I guess I can forgive it since these are supposed to be the legendaries and are also canonically wanted criminals. Come out with your hands up, we've got the place surrounded. You'll never catch me alive, fuckers! Now onto Indigo Disc. And in my humble opinion, it was a lot better than Teal Mask, making the DLC more worth it. As, get this, it has mainly double battles that uses actual strategy and are actually challenging, even if your team is over leveled. Yeah, it makes things easier, but your opponent can still cause some good damage to your party, especially the bosses. And if you were somehow slogging in Kitakami, the levels of the Pokemon here are higher. And there are more fan-favorite Pokemon like the Alolan Trio and Joltik. Yes, you heard me. They have the boys. Repeat, they have the boys! The story mostly revolves around you smacking some sense into Kieran, because the boy has been going off on a little power trip, and to do so, you have to fight the BB Elite 4, which is honestly fun, and yeah, I guess Carmen has dialed down her bull since she technically is paying for her actions. Oh, and then you go back to Area Zero to find Terrapogos. It's kinda tacked on at the end, but I think it does wrap things up nicely. And if you're wondering if there's anything outside of the story, then don't get yourself into a tizzy, because yes, it does. As the game will give you little quests called BBQs, and no, there's no barbecue. Would have been nice though. These are blueberry quests, and will mostly task you with things like picking up items, making sandwiches, or sending your Pokemon out for massacres. These gain you BP, which you can use in the shops or donate to other clubs in the club room in order to slap on a fresh coat of paint, or for some new cosmetics, which is kinda nice as it adds a little more personality to your character and adds a little more customization. You can also spend points in order to get the starters from previous games, which you can encounter in the areas. Pretty cool! You can also do these alone or with friends, but doing them with friends makes the grind a lot easier. Especially with that 3000 BP, my god! And after you beat the main story, once every 10 BBQs, you can get a special item which can get you legendaries of past games. Except Yveltal, Xerneas, and Zygarde. Because I guess even Game Freak wants to forget about Gen 6. And theory time, the reason they're in Paldea is because they're following the snack guy. You cannot change my mind. One of the newest features is the Synchro Machine. This allows you to not only interact with your Pokemon, but essentially be your Pokemon. Here you can only really auto battle as them and run around, but it's fun just to watch how each Pokemon moves and acts. And some have the most honest to Arceus, the silliest walks that are definitely certified by the Ministry of Silly Walks. Like Joltik. Look at him go. Look at him bounce. The problem here is that this feature is limited to Blueberry Academy. Thus, with the layout of the map and most Pokemon can only go so far if they're not water or flying type, and if you just so happen to find a shiny, then tough luck getting to it before it despawns. I hope this is a retaining feature because I do see potential in this new mechanic, but time will tell. I have heard some people complain about the lack of variety on the map, and honestly, I had worse. I mean, the map can use more variety, like you can replace the canyon area with a volcano, and I wouldn't complain, but compared to the first part of the DLC, Indigo Disc has a lot more variety. Starting with the savannah biome, it's unique to the rest of the game, yet kinda boring to look at. It is honestly just a glorified flatland with a few marshes. Though this rock is pretty cool. 6 out of 10. The tropical biome, despite there being numerous beaches in Paldea, manages to stay interesting. I don't know if it's because of the flowers and cliffs, or the fact that as I'm writing this script, I'm in a winter hell. 8 out of 10. Glacier biome manages to stand out the most to me. As well, yes, the Glacido Mountains is an ice area. The glaciers help it stand out more. It might be my personal favorite. 9 out of 10. Then there's the canyons. Well, I'm already used to eating myself up any mountain in sight, but those remain somewhat interesting to explore, especially the Chargestone Caves, which has one of my favorite Pokemon in it. 7 out of 10. No comment. Then there's the item printer, a mechanic that is essentially a gotcha mechanic in order to get rare items. This has gotten a lot of complaints, mostly due to the fact that this type of mechanic is getting a lot of unnecessary traction as of late. So, what is my opinion on this mechanic? To me, it's more meh. Okay, here's the thing. Gotcha mechanics are more annoying than anything, as they only use in-game currency that you are most likely sitting on by the time you finish the game. If this was anything more and used, say, actual real-world currency, then I say, yeah, it's a huge problem and should not be implemented again, but seeing as it is limited to in-game currency, then I can't really call it predatory. More as a nuisance, because you are now throwing in more resources just in hope of getting that one really good item, or God forbid a Master Ball. Which is cool that you can get more and don't have to decide on how to use it, but I'd rather they A. Sell them in in-game stores for a ludicrously high price, or B. Sell them in the auctions that are actually fun. That way, you can get the item you want without getting a lot of trash you don't need. And it's at least a little bit balanced. You can also get a lot of good interactions with the gym leaders, as you can now invite them as coaches, which you can battle again with harder teams and get some good character lore. You can only really invite 2 at a time, and inviting them costs BP, but it's worth it, especially if you want more battles. You can also get other characters like the BB Elite 4, which is cool because, again, you fight them again. Now that all of that is out of the way, why is everyone throwing Master Balls at Terrapogos? Listen, I get the stigma. You always want to use the Master Balls on legendaries because that's usually why they're given to you. But I don't think people realize you can use any Pokeball and it'll catch it. And I mean any Pokeball. To be fair, I'm guilty of this a little at first. I was using Ultra Balls for Ogerpon and Blood Moon Beast, and I didn't really realize until after the latter fight that you can use any ball and it will automatically catch it. And to prove it, I caught Terrapogos in a Beast Ball! And I highly doubt it's an Ultra Beast. Listen, if you're going to use your Master Ball, use it on one of the other legendaries, because those guys are the only ones that aren't guaranteed to you. I know this isn't a big deal, but it just makes me cringe a little when I see it. Like, it's a perfectly good Master Ball, and you just wasted it. Oh my god! And for the whole game in general, if you're looking for patches for glitches or a better running game in general, this isn't it. As honestly, it runs just as bad as the main game. You still get caught in the geometry, things still lag, and there is just as much jank. However, my hope is that soon it will be patched, as now they're done with the more pressing DLC, they'll focus more on the bigger problems. If they don't announce Gen 10 first, oh god. A very, very real possibility. Oh boy. And just as I thought my work was done, Nintendo decided there wasn't enough content and decided to add more story. Oh boy. As the epilogue itself, it's fine. It mostly adds just a few extra fights and you get to interact and see the main trio again. And for the story, oh boy. Okay, so you know those really dumb horror movies where they take something and try to make it scary, like, I don't know, freaking bed? Or beavers? Like, just a bunch of beavers? There's like a bunch of dudes that are sitting around a table like, okay, what mundane and weird thing can we make people scared of this time? Aw, man, what about a fucking bed, man? Like, it eats them when they sleep on it. Ah, good one, Tom! I really won't be sleeping tonight. This kind of vibe I get from this epilogue. Like, I don't know if the game was trying to be serious, but for the duration of the epilogue, I just couldn't because, for crying out loud, I just couldn't! She was a big oh no! Parts involved everyone aggressively chicken dancing at me. I think the thing that makes it better is just how whenever a character is dancing on screen, everyone is just kind of bopping to the rhythm. And then the nurse Joy just doesn't seem to care at all. Girl's just on her phone for the entire time. The epilogue isn't that long. Like I said, it's a bunch of extra battles along with new mythical Pokemon, which I wish they did more with, at least in the game. We do have lore about this thing, which Game Freak decided to add in a completely separate video one day after the epilogue came out on YouTube. But even if they didn't give us the whole lore in the game, they could have at least dropped some hints for us. Like have the community center guy go, oh, that's peculiar, that sounds like Petron. It was just me, the leader of the Loyal 3. Though I guess since the Loyal 3 went so good, this guy probably isn't either. This isn't to say I didn't enjoy it. I smiled through this whole thing. The fights weren't too memorable, but the story here in the last hour was very enjoyable and easily carried this for me. Despite everything, I still have questions, like how were the Royal 3 revived in the first place? Was it Petulant or something else? And what was up with Petulant anyway? Did it want friends? The masks? Revenge? What was its endgame? And what about Toro and Sada at the crystal pools? How did that time traveling thing work? Did Terrapogos have that ability and how? And why did they botch Team Star like this? Look at them! They're absolutely boring now! Like, thank Arceus we see more of Atticus in his outfit at the auction, but just why? Anyway, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, as I would really like to grow this channel, and see you next time. And yes, I did catch the shiny blossom. I named it Rose. There.